So I chose to do my project on the meat industry and its effects on the environment. So I couldn't find very many pros about the industry, so I decided to do it on opportunities to improve the industry instead. So the three opportunities I found were composting, reduction of deforestation, and dietary change in cattle. So basically, composting is a process where aerobic microorganisms decay organic material such as manure and bedding into soil. It makes the compounds in manure more stable and reduces the amount of methane that is released into the atmosphere. Cow manure releases methane into the atmosphere, which is bad for the environment because it is able to trap heat into the atmosphere, which causes the climates to rise. The majority of greenhouse gas emissions from livestock production is mainly in the form of methane, which is produced by manure decomposition. This means that composting the manure would lessen the amount of methane released into the air from the livestock manure. Deforestation accounts for 10% of the world's emissions. A significant portion of the deforestation is to clear areas for livestock because they need a lot of field space to roam around and graze, but cutting too many trees down is detrimental to the environment. If countries were to reduce the amount of deforestation that goes into livestock production, greenhouse gas emissions would be reduced. A lot of greenhouse gases also arise from cattle feed. Scientists have found that a variety of changes to cattle feed, such as red seaweed and corn, have better benefits on the environment. Scientists did a study on a red seaweed to see if using the seaweed instead of their usual forage diet would reduce methane emissions. The study found that a considerable reduction in CH4, which is methane production. Another study found that methane emissions were less when cattle were fed corn instead of barley, which is what is in their usual diet. If the diets of cattle are changed, this would result in a significant reduction of the amount of greenhouse gases emitted into the atmosphere. So, for my cons of the meat industry, I found that three big factors were biodiversity loss, climate change, and livestock cruelty. So, a large factor of the loss of biodiversity across the world is caused by the meat industry. Livestock production is one of the largest leading factors in habitat loss. Production of livestock is increasing in developing tropical countries where a majority of biological diversity inhabits. Livestock production, including feed production, accounts for about 3/4 of all agricultural land and nearly 1/3 of the ice-free land surface of the planet, making it the single largest anthropogenic land use type. Over 35% of the world's permanent ice-free land surfaces is being used for food production. The expansion of agricultural land used for the production of meat over the last 300 years is estimated to have reduced natural grasslands by at least 50% and natural forests by about 1/3. That being said, if the meat industry keeps expanding, pretty soon the world will have little to no biodiversity. The meat industry is also responsible for about a fifth of greenhouse gases, such as methane emissions and nitrous oxide, which are horrible for the environment and are causing temperatures around the world to rise. Greenhouse gas emissions that arise from the agricultural sector account for about 22% of the total global emissions. Livestock productions, which include the transport of livestock and feed, are responsible for about 80% of the sector's emissions. The production of livestock is also projected to double by 2050. The doubling of production will cause an even bigger rise in global climate, and eventually we will get to a point that we just cannot come back from. The way animals such as cows, pigs, chickens, sheep, etc. are treated is cruel. The well-being of the livestock is just not considered at all in the meat industry. During their transportation to be slaughtered, animals may be tied in pairs in order to reduce the number of workers needed for herding. This causes injury and fatigue to the livestock being herded. Many animals are also not given any food or water on their way to the slaughterhouse. Some livestock are even beaten and forced to move fast in order to reach markets on time. The animals that fall down are whipped and forced to get back up. To top it all off, livestock that are transported in trucks are crammed together in overcrowded, ill ventilated trucks in hot and humid weather for up to 3 or even 4 days. These conditions are inhumane and cause extreme stress to livestock in the meat industry. The ending result of their abuse is weight and muscle loss. These animals are beaten down so hard that they are not even fit to be consumed. If something is not done soon, the treatment of livestock is just going to get worse. Now, my position on this project is how much of a negative impact this industry has on the world. Yes, I know there are many ways of improving the industry, but these things would be very hard to accomplish in general, let alone to get enough people to do these things to make it even have any impact on the world and the climate and the animals. I believe that there are so many cons to this industry that it is much worse for the environment than it could be better. I'm not saying that people should stop eating meat, but us as humans want the world to stay habitant and to lessen the abuse of animals. We need to keep an eye out for where we are buying our meat from. Law enforcement needs to come down on producers abusing their livestock, and society needs to stop buying meat products from producers such as Tyson Foods, who do not seem to care about what the industry is doing to the environment. Thank you.